So what are we going to be doing for part 14 is to revamp the pickup system. And the reason why we are revamping the pickup system is really simple. If we look at the project that we have so far, right, we have ability unlocks. The 6 ability unlocks are sidecast, variable jump, dash, and then there are 3 more, which are in the prefabs folder: upcast, and then we have wall jump, as well as downcast. So we have 6 power-ups, and we also have 2 pickups that increase our max health and increase the amount of mana that we have. So the problem with all of these scripts, right, is that for starters, the script for unlocking different abilities, they are practically just mirror images of each other. You will see the unlock sidecast, for example. It's practically the same script as, let's say, unlock dash. Okay, it's just a couple of characters that are different, and this is not the best way to code stuff. Let me just place the scripts side by side so you can see how similar they are. This is unlock dash, unlock sidecast. It's practically the same thing. It's just one line of difference, which is right here. Clearly, there's a better way of coding this, and we will be applying some object-oriented programming principles. More specifically, we will be using inheritance to link all of these scripts together to make the management of these scripts more straightforward. Because let's say if we add more abilities and we have, let's say, 12 or 15 abilities in the future, and if you wanted to change something about all the unlocks, you will have to go to all 15 scripts or however many scripts you have for unlocking abilities and modify every script the same way, and that's just a lot of work. Not to mention it's a waste of space, and it's just not the most ideal way of managing the project, because you will just balloon your project into many scripts, which is not necessary. You can see the same problem with the max health script as well as the add op shard script or the add mana op script, because they are both upgrade scripts that increase the number of health or mana that your character has. And again, the scripts are practically the same. So we'll be introducing the concept of inheritance to manage all of these pickups. And this is how we are going to organize our scripts. So we will have a grandfather pickup class that will descend into 2 separate scripts. We have instant pickups, which are pickups that do not cause a UI to pop up, because if you look at the items that we have in the project so far, right, every item that we pick up will cause a pop-up. Either it causes a pop-up to show you which ability you have gained, or it causes a pop-up to show you how many more upgrades you need to have before you can get an extra health or an extra piece of mana. So instead of having them be separated into distinct scripts, we'll group them into pickups like these. And then under PopupPickup, we have UnlockAbilityPickup and then the UpgradePickup. So the UnlockAbilityPickup and the UpgradePickup will replace the 10 pickup scripts that we have in the project so far. The UnlockAbilityPickup will replace all the unlock sidecast, upcast, downcast, variable jump, dash, and wall jump. So that's 6 abilities, and the UpgradePickup will replace the pickup that gives you extra health or that gives you extra mana. The instant pickup is just there to award us blue health. So in Hollow Knight, right, there are 2 pickups that do not have a UI element pop-up, and they're the coin pickup. I think they call it something else. It's like shell or scarab or something. And then the other one is the excess health for the blue health. So this is how we're going to organize our scripts. So even after adding additional functionality in the instant pickup, right, you will find that at the end of this part, we will have lesser scripts than we started with, which is always a good thing, because when you code your scripts, right, you always want to code with modularity in mind. Modularity just means that it's easy for you to use one script and just modify a couple of variables for it to serve a completely different purpose. You will see the concept of modularity in a lot of the components that Unity has, like for example the rigid body, or like for example the audio source, which you use to add sounds into your game, or like the various colliders that you see in the Unity component ecosystem. So we want to bring a little bit of that into our own scripts as well. We don't want to just code one script for everything, because this will cause your project to end up with hundreds of scripts if your project is large, and it's just not very good planning, and it will just make the project very difficult to manage in the future. So that's one of the reasons why I came up with this part, and the other reason is because in the next part we are working on a more general and easier to use save system. So for that save system to work, the pickups must be related. We can't have every pickup have its own save system. So for that reason, and for the purpose of getting our code base more organized, we are having part 14 revamp the entire pickup system to improve it, to upgrade it, and to make it more versatile. So that in the future, if you want to add further categories of pickups, you can just extend one of these classes to serve the purpose that you want to serve. The first script that we're going to bring into our project is the pickup script. And this is the script that will serve as the grandfather for all the other scripts that we're going to bring into the project. It's abstract firstly, and the reason it's abstract is because the pickup class is not meant to be attached to any game object. Let me just bring the pickup script into the project first, and then I'll explain the specifics of how the script works. I'm gonna put this in the pickups folder, but you can choose any folder that you like. First thing you'll notice is that the pickup script is abstract, and the reason it's abstract is because it's not meant to be attached to anything. So if you try and find the pickup component, you won't be able to find it, and the reason for that again is because it is abstract. So what an abstract class is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to serve as a baseline for all the other scripts. So the other pickup scripts that we have will inherit from the pickup script. Basically, when you inherit another script, you are inheriting everything that is in the pickup class. So that means all the variables that we declare here, all the nested structs and nested classes, as well as all the functions that we have. So let's go through the various components of the pickup script one by one. We have a used boolean, and this is basically for us to track if the pickup has been, well, picked up. Because when the pickup is picked up, the collider is still active because it might need time to play animation and all that stuff before it goes away, right? So we don't want for the pickup to be pick upable when it's already picked up and it's just in the process of getting animated away. So once the pickup is picked up, then the use boolean will be set to true, which means that anything else that touches it cannot pick it up. We have use delay and use delay as well, one without the D and one with the D. So use delay and used delay, right? They are there because later on I will show you the lower part of the pickup class where we have different events that you can hook scripts into after the pickup has been obtained. So I'll talk about use delay and use delay later. This is for the pop-up pickup that we will have later on because these are used to time when the UI pop-up appears and when it disappears. And then we have animation. Animation I'll show you later when we implement the instant pickup. But these are basically just variables that you can set, and then this creates animations on the pickup itself. So this saves us work because we don't have to create unique animators for every one of our pickups. We also have two particle system variables here that will cause particle effects to play when the pickup is destroyed, and for the player that picks up the pickup, right, an effect will also play on the player. So this is target effect prefab that plays a particle effect on the player, and the destroy effect prefab which plays on where the pickup used to be. And this whole thing is a nested struct. This will be shown to you later on as well when we implement a class that uses the pickup class, because the struct allows us to create an animation variable that has all of these values inside that are configurable. And the reason it's struct that is inside the pickup is because the animation is only going to be used inside the pickup class. So we want to put the struct inside here to constrain it within the pickup class. We have initial position, initial offset. These are just for the animation that the pickup will have later on. Again, these two variables are related to these three variables over here, and they are there because it makes it easier for us to, in the long run, animate our pickups without having to use animators, which will save us a lot of work. The update function contains just the formula for animating the pickup. So it takes the initial position and it animates it in the direction that we are moving in. The sine curve causes the pickup to bob in a certain direction. This will be a lot easier to explain later on when you see the animation. And then we also have a rotation animation right here. So we have the start function, which again sets the animation variables. These are not that important, these are just aesthetics. The important function here is the on trigger enter 2D, which fires when the pickup is touched. And then the first thing you see is that if the pickup is used, then we stop firing this function, which means that we just treat it as though the pickup wasn't ever picked up. Otherwise, if the pickup isn't used, then we try and see whether the thing that is picking us up is the player. And if it is, we will start a coroutine called handle use. And this handle use coroutine will fire the touch, the use, and the used functions. So these functions all perform a certain role. So when a pickup is used, you will see that the touch function fires first, and then there is a slight delay. Delay is just a function here that waits for a certain number of seconds, but it waits manually because we are coding the waits ourselves. If you're wondering why we don't use just wait for seconds and why we want to code the waits ourselves, it's because if we use wait for seconds, this will not be compatible with the pause system that we have in the game manager. Because if we pause the game, the wait for seconds will pause as well, but we want some of our UI elements to be able to continue animating even when the game is paused. So for such instances, for it to be compatible with the new pausing system that we implemented in part 11, we have our own delay function that takes the pausing into account. So you will notice that if you were working on this project in the earlier parts, you will see that the UI elements can get very janky if you try and pause your game in the middle of the UI animating. So with us having the delay function, which works together with the pausing functionality in the game manager, this allows us to go around the problem of the UI being janky. And when you have UI and you have a pausing system, you have to think about how this pausing system will affect everything, and you have to code everything around the pausing system, which is something that we didn't do in the earlier parts. So back to handle use. The important functions here are touch, use, and used. So here we have use delay and used delay, and then these again are set at the top. So how this pickup system works, right, is that after the item is picked up, touch will play first. And touch basically just fires an effect here, and then we have use. Use will mark the object as used and then play a different effect, this time on the player character. Whenever we do a touch and then we do a use and used, we always pass the player character to each of the functions. So then we can do certain things to the player's character that we want to. So it plays an effect on the player character, it's parented to the player character, and then it's marked to be destroyed after the animation is finished playing. And then used just removes the game object. So the first question you might be wondering is, why don't we just put everything into handle use? Why do we have to split everything up into 3 functions? To answer that, I'll have to bring your attention first to this virtual keyword over here. So virtual basically means that you want to override the function. And what is overriding? So in this part, right, when we are coding the pickup system, we are using inheritance, and inheritance basically means that all the functions and all the variables that we have in this class and all the nested classes and everything are all inherited by the script that we are using to inherit the pickup class. So when another script inherits the pickup class, it inherits all the functions as well. But you might want to make slight modifications to how for example, the use function behaves. In which case, then you will override the use function. So by creating 3 functions over here and by marking them virtual and by calling them at different times, we make it very easy for our later scripts that are gonna inherit the pickup script to modify, let's say, the touch behavior or the use behavior or the used behavior. And this is why separating these into different functions are so important. Alright, so when we code, we want to always think about not just what we want to achieve, but also on a higher level, right? How can I code something that in the future makes it very easy for me to spawn variations of the same thing without having to write the same code over. Once you've coded for a couple of months, you should get a rough idea of how different things can be coded in your game. But the challenge when you develop games is always when your game gets very big, then your code base becomes very difficult to manage. So when your code base grows, right, what determines how easy your game is to manage will be how you plan your code, how you organize your classes. So if you organize them well, it's going to be very easy for you to manage your code base. Firstly, because you're going to reduce the number of scripts that you have, and second, because your code base is going to be easy to read, and this is so important. And it's not just a matter of writing comments, it's also a matter of how you organize your functions, your classes, and your variables. So over here, in this part, what I'm trying to show is a glimpse of how, when you have multiple moving parts, how you want to organize all your scripts into something that is modular and very easy to skip. So now that we have the pickup script, right, the first thing that we're going to be creating is the instant pickup. And after I create this, I can show you the various features that were coded into the pickup class. Let's just go back into the pickup folder here and create an instant pickup right here. And the instant pickup is pretty straightforward. There's very few lines of code, and the reason for that is because all the heavy logic or the bulk of the work has been done in the pickup class. And this is why the instant pickup doesn't have to do much. It just defines 4 variables: health, excess health, mana, and excess mana. Inherits from pickup, and then it just overrides the use function. So this use function here, right, what it does is that basically base.use means that it fires everything inside the pickup function, which is right here. Remember that it's virtual. So when something is virtual, then you can override it in the child class. The child class is the class that inherits from the parent class. So we are overriding the use function, but we are calling the original use function on pickup, like this. So everything here fires, plus these 4 extra lines of code. And what these 4 extra lines of code are is we have a rewards section for instant pickup, and it has health, excess health, mana, excess mana. So these control what are the rewards that you will get from picking up this pickup. So if the health is not 0, then you will add a health to the player. If excess health is not 0, you add a health to the excess health to the player, so on and so forth. Alright, so instant pickup is designed to add to your existing attributes. Alright, so because this class is not abstract, we can attach it to one of our pickups. So let's create a new pickup, the blue heart pickup, because we never created a pickup for extra health, right? Because we never had a mechanic that allowed us to have extra health. So let's create that. I'm just gonna duplicate the increase max health prefab right here. I'm just gonna call it excess health. I'm gonna call it excess health pickup just to make it clear what this does. I'll unpack this prefab completely so this becomes a game object. And from here, I'm just gonna move the heart over and just color it something else. Let's use our new heart sprites, shall we? Because I don't want to use the old one. So let's use this one. I'm just gonna turn this black because this will be the outline. And then we have the fill inside here. The fill will be on top of the excess health pickup. So let's just gonna set this to 1. And I'll change the heart fill over here to the heart sprite and color this blue. So just a couple of simple changes. What you will do here depends on how your game is designed, right? The art side of your game. So I'll remove the canvas as well because there's gonna be no pop-up when the object is picked up, and I'm gonna remove the increase max health script as well. So the excess pickup that we have, I'll just grab the light here and change this to blue as well so that it fits the theme. And to replace the increase max health script, I will put an instant pickup here. So this instant pickup will be used if you wanted to create new pickups that apply different kinds of bonuses. So let's say you wanted your pickup to give mana or everything else, right? You can just set this up accordingly as well. You have all these different configurations here to control what are the rewards that you'll get when you pick up this pickup. So we have use delay and use delay as well, but for instant pickup, right, the use delay will be 0 because there's going to be no delay before the effects apply to you. So then you can introduce a small delay if you want. Doesn't really matter. Again, it's up to how you balance your game. If you put a use delay of 0.05, then when you pick up this object, it will take 0.05 seconds before the blue health is given to your character. And then the use delay just controls how long it takes before this thing gets destroyed. A use delay of 0.1, so it takes 0.1 seconds before this thing destroys itself. The animation drop down over here is really the thing that is interesting about this component because it removes the need for us to apply an animator onto our pickups. Let me show you what I mean. Right, so over here we have the heart pickup, and you'll see that it just floats around by itself, and that's not by accident, and that's because the animation attributes here control how the animations work. So if I increase the direction over here, you will see the heart bounce around more. You can also control how the heart animates, like with the X and Y and the Z. The Z doesn't really do anything. The Z can make it just pop in and out. You see that because we are using a perspective camera, but really we don't have to animate the Z. The only direction we want to animate is the Y, but the X and the Z I just included it so that it gives you more flexibility with animation. But I think the Y will be what most of you are using. Frequency just makes it go faster. So if I put a really high frequency here, you'll see this will bounce very vigorously. So you can just tweak all these things, and you have torque as well, which controls like the flipping, the rotation of the heart. So in my case here, because this project it uses a 3D camera, so the rotation doesn't really work as well as I like. You can also rotate in other directions. So again, because rotation, we have 3 axes of freedom, right? Unity is at its core still a 3D engine. So if I were to grab the excess blue health pickup, and if I rotate, let's say the Z axis, you will see that you can actually add an animation for rotation as well. So this makes the animation really easy to do, right? Without having to, again, create complicated animator effects. The other thing I wanted to show you is this destroy effect prefab and target effect prefab, which is really useful as well. Because what it does is that it allows you to play a particle effect when the item is picked up. The destroy effect prefab plays on the item, and the target effect prefab plays on the player. I'll just grab 2 very simple particle effects already in our project to show you how this works. Just add a blood spurt onto the player character. I know it doesn't really suit, but this is just a quick one. I believe you can create your own particle effect for this. And let's say I'll just add the unlocking effect here, and then let me just touch the object and show you. So with the effects, you will see that effects play when you pick up the object, which is always a nice thing to have. This is something that I think is there for the existing scripts as well. For increased max health, you have these particles here. So I'm just introducing a little more complexity, a little more options for you, right? Whether you want to play effects on the player and or the object itself. So if you just remove the effect, let's say you don't want any effect to play on the player, you can just remove the effect over here and then no effect will play on the player. So this makes everything very customizable. And finally, the rewards, of course, you can control the values here. Let's say you want this to award 2 health and 1 excess health or whatever, right? Just tweak the values accordingly and your character will get awarded with the respective rewards for picking up this instant pick. Let me just hurt myself a little bit, show you how this works. Now if I pick up this heart, I get 2 hearts and 1 2. So it's just really cool stuff, and again the script is so simple because we have a lot of the skeleton built up in the pickup class. Okay, let's implement the pop-up pickup next, and the pop-up pickup again is an abstract class. Let me just bring this into the project first and I'll explain how the script works. So here I have pop-up pickup, and again the script is pretty short because the bulk of the work is done in the pickup class, and this class just adds one variable, which is pop-up, and this is the canvas or the thing that appears when this object is picked up. And then we call this the UI screen because in our existing code for the canvases, right, we actually manually animate the object appearing, but the UI screen handles the animation for us. We coded this UI screen in part 12, if you remember, and then we coded the UI screen to automatically handle the animation for all UI elements. So we replaced a lot of animation scripts in our project, and this is one of the places where the UI screen can work to replace the animation work that this class will otherwise have to do as well. So in increase max health and add mana orb, you had a bunch of animation codes for fading in the canvas, and this is not needed anymore. So the pop-up pickup class just does a couple of things. It just firstly sets the pop-up under each of the pop-up pickups to be inactive first in case they are active. It calls the original start function in the pickup class, and then we have touch here, which again calls the original function because you want the effect to play, right? And then you create a stop effect here. So the stop effect is basically to pause the game when we pick up a new pop-up pickup, and basically the pause will last for duration of use delay plus use delay. So let's say if you have a use delay of 0.5 and a used delay of 4 seconds, then this stops time for 4.5 seconds. And the reason we are stopping time is because we are showing the UI, and it doesn't make sense for the game to continue running when we have the UI appearing, because otherwise the enemies can hurt you and stuff, which is not ideal. The use function is overridden as well, and again it plays the effect. And then the activate function here turns on the pickup. So after touch is fired, and then we wait for use delay number of seconds, right? And then use fires, which activates the pop-up. Here this is false because if this is true, it will close all the other UI screens on our game, and we don't want that to happen because we may have the game paused or whatever, or some other UI might be on, like the health and mana UI screens as well. So we activate the new pop-up without deactivating any other existing UI screens. After whatever we set for use delay elapses, then the use function fires, and this turns off the pop-up, and then it fires the base.used. So here why base.used is fired last is because in the pickup class, right, when you fire the used function, this destroys the game object, which stops all the other scripts. So this has to be fired last, otherwise this will not work. This reset here is just here because when you reset the component in Unity, then this function fires if you have this function that's dead. And the reset function here basically makes the default use delay and the default used delay to be 0.5 and 4 seconds respectively. And it automatically also gets the pop-up pickup to find a suitable UI screen element in our hierarchy. So again, because this is abstract, I can't show you how this script works, but later on we'll be implementing 2 pop-up pickups, and then I'll show you how the pop-up pickup component actually helps to simplify the rest of our scripts for the other parts. Alright, so with the pop-up pickup now implemented, we can actually move on to implement the UnlockAbilityPickup script. And just a reminder how it works is when you pick up something that unlocks the ability, then you get this canvas in your face that shows you what ability you've unlocked. And then after that, the canvas fades away and you get to continue playing the game. So the pop-up pickup is required. But before we implement the UnlockAbilityPickup script, we will have to revamp the way that the unlockables are coded, because the current way that we are doing things, right, makes it very difficult for us to use a systematic way to control the unlocks. So because you will have to hard code the variable that the script unlocks, right? So you need to have one script for every unlock if you set the variables up like that, which is really unfortunate. So what we're going to be doing, right, for the player controller is that instead of having 6 booleans, we're going to combine everything into one dropdown, and then we'll use an enum to basically create a dropdown. I'll explain what an enum is later once I show you how the dropdown looks, but first we have to update the player controller script, which means to remove all the booleans for the unlockable abilities, and then we have to implement a new enum. An enum is like a struct, it's just a new variable type, and then this allows us to declare a new variable type of abilities. So once all of this is updated, we'll have to update the rest of our player controller script as well to use the new enum instead of the old booleans. So here as well, sidecast, and then we have upcast, downcast, last one is variable jump. So these are the extent of the updates on the player controller script. But once you update the player controller script, you'll realize that this causes issues with the rest of our project. And that's because some of the other scripts that we have also refer to the booleans. So if you look at the error log now in the project, then you will see that under the SaveData script, we have some issues. And then we have some issues with the pickups, as well as some issue with the inventory manager as well. So we have to fix all of these other issues. So these are all pretty easy fixes. Let me just start with the SaveData first. SaveData references the old player booleans. So you have to update the save system. So the save system will be replaced in part 15, but we have to update this, otherwise we won't be able to get this to work. So wherever we refer to the old booleans, we remove these lines, and then we now just save everything as a single variable, player abilities. This is also declared inside here. So these 6 booleans are replaced with a single player abilities. Okay, so why is this player controller dot abilities? Because this is the ability struct inside the player controller. By creating the struct that we created just now for abilities for the player, we gain the ability to create ability variable types in all of our scripts. So here we save this as ability, and then we just write this. So by creating the enum here, we create the ability for us, pun not intended, to use this as a variable. And then further down here, why we cast this into an integer is because this enum here is actually represented by an integer. It's a long story, I'll explain more later on, but we can't save the enum by itself, so we have to save it as an integer, and then later on we can just convert it back to an ability enum, and this will work. And then we just replace every part of the code that refers to the booleans, and instead we will refer to player abilities. So in the loading section here, instead of reading player abilities, we read an integer, and we convert it back to a abilities object. And then here, same thing, we just replace the boolean with the enum, replace the boolean with our enum, and here you see this is 0, and this is again because enums are actually fundamentally integers. Okay, so later when we code the unlocks, I will explain to you how this works. But let me just copy and paste the SaveData script into the project as well, and we have to update the inventory manager script as well. Same thing, we just have to replace references to the old booleans to referring to the new enum that we have. So once I make these updates, you will see that the player controller component actually changes in a good way, of course. Once we do that, most of our errors we fixed, except for the errors that involve the unlocks. And for that, there's no easy way around it. Either you update the scripts, and by updating the scripts I mean you have to update this line here to change the enum. This is a little bit of work and I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to delete all these old pickup scripts because we'll be replacing them with our own anyway later on. So delete these scripts and the errors we fixed, and you should now be able to see the updates to the player controller script. So now if I go to the player object, you will see here in the place of the booleans is the abilities drop down here. So when you gain an ability, then the ability will be checked, of course, and you can check multiple of them. And this is because of the way that the enum was set up. So here, let me just get into what enums are and how they work, because I think it's pretty important for you to understand how this new system works. So we have our ability enum right here. And what this is, basically, you will notice that I have given a number to each ability, and these numbers are all powers of 2. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And the reason for that, remember that I mentioned that these enums here, they are number 1 a drop down, which you see here. They are drop down, and they are also integers, right? Bytes are just small integers, so you can treat them as integers. Bytes are just integers that have a smaller range of numbers they can store. So I'm just saying that this integer should be saved as a byte just to save space. Okay, the more important thing is why are these numbers 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32? And that's because integers in code, right? No matter what programming language you go to, they always stored as binary. So for example, if you wanted to store a number 4, right? Integer counting works like this in the computer. So it counts in binary. So this is 1, 0, 11, and this will be... Okay, so here we have 1, we have 2, we have 3, and so on. So this goes on and on and on. This is 8. So an integer is 32 bits, which means that an integer can, at maximum, right, store the following number. So integers are stored basically as a series of ones or zeros. So every one here can also be a 0. And of course, if you change the 1 and 0, you will change the value that this integer represents. So integers can be used as just to represent a single number. But notice that because they are ones and zeros, an integer can also be used to represent 32 booleans. Over here, you will see 32 booleans here. Why? Because it's 1 and 0, right? So every 1 and 0 can be a true or false. So then you have 32 booleans. Remember we had 6 booleans? That was why I converted everything to an enum, because an enum basically is a series of booleans. And the reason why I use the byte is because an integer has 32 bits, whereas a byte has 8 bits. So if I use a byte, then I will just have 8 booleans. So this saves the space. And then why are these 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32, right? It's because I've made them flags, and flags basically causes Unity to treat this drop down as you can select multiple options. If you don't flag the enum, then you can only select one option. And when you use flags, right, you will have to use 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32. And the reason for that is because this represents 2. 2 is this, right? So 2 will be like this. So this is 2. Alright. 4 is this. And of course 1 is this. And then we have, of course, 8. So 8 is 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so you will see 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32, right? They represent a flag in every space here. So 16 will be this, and then 32 will be this. Alright, so why do we have to configure the numbers to be 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on? Okay, it's because by having each of the abilities occupy a number that is represented by a 1 in one of the slots, right? You can combine them together. So for example, if I want to use the number 3, 3 will mean that I have this. Okay, so 3 will mean that I have the abilities dash and variable jump. So by storing the integer and making very specific values for integers, they're all powers of 2. This allows us to very easily use this to flip. Let's say if I wanted to have, let's say, upcast enabled, I can just flip this to 1. So we are basically treating that integer here as a series of booleans so that we can manage everything as a single variable. Okay, this is a lot more space efficient because a boolean takes up 1 byte. And a byte here also takes up, a byte here also takes up 1 byte. So basically you are just dividing the amount of memory that you're using by 6, which is really nice. And of course, this allows us to code more dynamism into our code later on. So now that you understand this bitwise thing, you understand why in our save data here, right? When we save, now you know why we convert this to an integer. It's because enums are essentially just numbers. Why I'm talking about the bits over here is because later on, I will need you to understand this to understand what I'm doing with the UnlockAbilityPickup, which is further down. So now that all of this is in place and all our errors are fixed, we can implement the UnlockAbilityPickup here. So let's move in to the folder here and then just create the new UnlockAbilityPickup script. Okay, so this UnlockAbilityPickup is straightforward. It has a destroy if learned. So previously in our old unlock scripts, right? If the ability is already learned, then the pickup will destroy itself. So now we have an option to turn this on or off. So if this is on and we have the ability, then we just destroy the pickup. And of course, base.start is called because we need to call the base.start inside the pickup class, which calls the base.start in the pickup class here. The only function that we override is the use function, because when the function is used, it unlocks the ability for the player. So what I have to explain for the UnlockAbilityPickup script, right, is what does this mean? And this is a bitwise OR. So for you to understand what a bitwise OR operation is, let me just clear everything on a notepad here and explain how bitwise operations work for you. So when you compare booleans, right, let's say it's raining and not. So Booleans work like that, right? Where you have one boolean and next, and then only if you use the AND, only if both are true, then something will happen. And if I use a different example, let's say it's raining or I'm not sleepy, let me just put it if over here. So these are two different expressions that work differently depending on whether these booleans are true or false. If I put an AND over here, then both must be true for something to happen here. And then if I put an OR, this means that only one of them must be true for something to happen for the if condition. Bitwise operations work the same way, but bitwise operations work on integers. So you can think of bitwise operations as follows. So let's say if I have two numbers and I'm just gonna write them down in binary, which is this, so that we can perform the bitwise operations. So if I were to do a bitwise AND over here, right? Bitwise AND basically allows something to be 1 only if both of these are 1. So because everything here is 1 0 1 0 1 0, the result that you will get here is 0 0 0 0 0 0 1 0, because only these two are 1s. If I use a bitwise OR, which is what we are using here, then the result will be different, because if I do this, then this would mean that any column, right, that already has a 1 will have a 1, because either or, then we'll get a 1. So this, if I do a bitwise OR, we'll get this. All right. So why are we doing a bitwise OR here is because when we have an UnlockAbilityPickup, this is the ability that is unlocked. And when we have an ability that's unlocked, right, what we want is to flip one of the zeros here into 1. You can imagine this as being the current abilities, right? So if I wanted to unlock, let's say, ability number 2, then this will be the number that will be applied. And then when we do a bitwise OR, this will become this, okay? And let's say if any existing ability that we have, right, is like this. So let's say the player has ability slot 5 that's enabled. If I do a bitwise OR, this will retain whatever ability I have and add a new ability over here. So you can think of bitwise OR as basically just adding one ability to the existing abilities list of the player. And if you do a bitwise AND, you are basically, in a way, it's removing, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about that in the future because we have to do bitwise stuff and it's complicated. I have to have an example for you to show you how bitwise AND works, otherwise it will just be difficult to explain. Alright, so this is the reason why we use a bitwise OR. We use it to unlock the ability. So with this being set up, right, we can now head over to all of our unlock pickups and just make a few changes to our pickups. And what are the changes that we'll be making? We'll go to the prefabs folder under the pickups folder. And from here, I will just go into each of my prefabs, and because we just deleted the old script, so now we have to replace this with UnlockAbilityPickup. And then under animation here, we can add animation to it if you want, it's up to you. We have to add a destroy effect because this is the old trigger effect, and then the target effect, we just don't play anything because there's going to be a pop-up anyway. The key thing here is that you see use delay, and use delay by default is set to 0.5 and 4. And if you recall, this is because in the PopupPickup, we have set these to 0.5 and 4 in the reset function. And there's also this thing that automatically tries to find a UI screen. For now, this is empty because we don't have a UI screen. So under the canvas over here, just add a UI screen because this UI screen will be responsible for the fading in and fading out. The script itself for the pickup is not going to do the fade in, fade out for us anymore. Let me just close everything here and re-add this. Okay, so we have this canvas over here and it's just missing a UI screen component. To just add this, and then make sure that you set this to nothing because we don't want pausing to affect the animation of the UI screen, because when we pick up the pop-up pickup, then the game will be stopped. So when the game is stopped, then time doesn't flow, so we cannot make this affected by global timescale. Otherwise, when the time is paused, then the UI screen will not animate. So make sure this is set to nothing. This is really important. And then once you do that, if you just reset a component here, you will see that automatically this finds the UI screen for you. If it's inactive, you have to assign it yourself, which is not really that big of an issue actually. I'll just assign a canvas to the unlock dash so that the script knows what UI to show when we pick this pickup up. And the most important thing, aside from the animation over here, is the unlocks. So you have to choose what this unlock dash here unlocks. Of course, this unlocks a dash, straightforward. And then we have to go to the other prefabs and do the same thing. So I'm just gonna very quickly do this for every one of them. One script. Yeah, we don't have 6 scripts anymore. So this is really cool. And you've got to add again the UI screen. Just set this to nothing. And then the ability for this is downcast and canvas. Okay, so I'll just apply this to all my prefabs here. So with all this properly set up, right, when you pick up a new UnlockAbilityPickup now, it should give you the ability. Let's just test it out to make sure that it works. So I'm just gonna grab this and you will see the UI appear. And after this, the game pauses, and when it unpauses, you will find your player with a new ability that's right here. Okay, so we have reduced the number of scripts on our project by 6 and replaced it with one script that handles everything for us. And we'll do the same thing for our increased max health and our increased mana as well, so that they both run on the same level of efficiency as our unlocks. So let's head over to our scripts, right? We have to add one more script as well. And that script is the UI pickup notification. And the reason we have to add this script here is because our increased max health and our increased max mana actually comprises of two scripts. One script for the pickup and one script for animating the pop-up. Because when you move over and you collect an increase, let's say max health, you get a pop-up like this. So this pop-up needs to be animated, and this is how we are going to do it. Alright, we have a UI pickup notification, and this UI pickup notification basically contains the code for the animation on hard shards and op shards. Again, these op shards is under the mana pickup. So hard shards and op shards, again, they are repeats of each other. It's just the same piece of code, but just doing slightly different things. So the UI pickup notification does the same fail animation, and then there is an activate over here that basically adds a little bit more functionality to the activate function in the UI screen. It has a delay over here, and then there is a slight delay as well, because the animation takes a slight delay before it starts playing. So after the UI is activated, the activate function waits for a little while more before it starts to call the fail function, which fills up the UI. This is the same as it's very similar to the fail function that we have over here in the old hard shards and op shards script. And then we have set fail, which allows our pickup to set what is the start and end, because depending on how many pickups you already have picked up, the fail animation is different. So if I have 2 hearts already and I need 2 more, then when I pick up the heart should already be filled to half, and then it goes to like 3/4, right? So this will allow our pickup script to modify how the fail animation fires, basically. So now that we have the UI pickup notification, notice that it inherits the UI screen, which is why it's able to override the activate function right here. So with this on, we can now grab our UpgradePickup script as well. And from here, we can drop it into our project as with all the other pickup scripts. And you will see the UpgradePickup script just introduces a new type of enum. This enum is not a flag, so we just want to use the UpgradePickup to replace the old increase health and increase mana script. Again, go to the prefab, modify the prefab, do not modify the game objects themselves. So I'm just going to remove the increase max health here and add UpgradePickup. Because we have an enum over here, right? This enum here causes the variable type here, because we use the type enum to create a variable called type, and this creates a pickup for us, health or mana. So this UpgradePickup, we have to specify whether it's to upgrade the health or upgrade mana, and then of course we have the same animation and the same use delay. So here we will assign the old unlock pickup animation, which is right here, and then we will leave the target effect prefab empty. The pop-up here will be, because this is increased max health, right? Let me just remove hard shards as well, and then add the UI pickup notification. Fail settings over here will fail, and then fail delay will be 0.5, and then make sure that this is nothing as well. And with that, our UpgradePickup is ready to go. Again, one script, we apply the same settings to increase max mana. I also actually want to change the name of this prefab, because this will be health upgrade, right? It makes more sense to call this the health grade, and then this will be the mana upgrade. So add op shard, let me just modify the prefab first. Same thing, remove the old scripts, add new UpgradePickup. This will be mana, and then we assign the unlock prefab, and then go to canvas, remove op shard, add UI pickup notification, not affected by timescale, and then put the fail here. Gotta assign this here as well. Almost forgot about this one. So with everything assigned in the right places, let me just rename the op shard here to mana upgrade. So now let me just try and pick up these health and mana upgrades. And you can see same thing. Yeah, so depending on how much mana or health upgrades you already have, this will change itself. Of course, first we have a save system, right? This is the mana upgrade, and our new pickup system is in place. So with this new pickup system and all the scripts centralized, we will have to mark our old scripts that we didn't delete as obsolete. This is the last part. I will just leave it to you whether you want to delete them or whether you want to mark them as obsolete. I would actually delete them, but if you want to keep them around, you can just set them in system obsolete. This is to remind yourself and anyone else working on the same project as you that the scripts shouldn't be used anymore. I'm just going to delete them. The reason why you might not want to delete them is because some of your other scripts might reference them as well. I can try deleting them, and if it causes problems, then I'll just restore them. I think that would make sense. So if the script runs without any problems, then we can remove the scripts. And here is our new pickup system. Now with all the changes that we have made, we have a cool new pickup system that's a lot more efficient and a lot more organized than the old one. So I hope you enjoyed the video and have a nice day, have a nice night, wherever you are.